I want to meet you. This is where I can engage you. This is where we can relate.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope I hope you can understand that, and I hope that's something we can build together.
Yeah. And try to move away from whether it's good enough, like that kind of language.
Yeah. Stop taking results out of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that makes sense.
Sometimes we have to, and where it gets really hard is where we we stick to our principles despite the outcome.
Yeah. So even in theory, because I haven't done this, so I can't say even if this happened, but in theory, if I'm on, I'd be like, well, no. I'm like, well, that's what I can do.
Yeah.
And that's, I will do that, and I will live into that.
I hear that that's a disappointment to you.
Yeah.
But I'm going to do the best I can in what I can deliver.
Yeah.
Or what I can do, or how we can relate.
That is what I want to be able to say, and that sound like there's no reservation in me saying that. And I'm trying to think, like, when I talk to my mom, most of the time, I guess let me phrase, when it's one-on-one and her anxiety is lower, we can have a conversation like that. When there's some other extenuating circumstance where her anxiety goes up, I don't go all the way up with her. I've gotten to where I can, like, I have a ceiling, but I do think my functioning changes when it goes up even a little bit, to where it's the goal almost becomes, without wanting it to be, calming mom down to be able to talk to her again, versus sticking to any particular original plan.
Okay, that to me sounds like, I think the first part of the strategy ought to be lowering your own anxiety.
Yeah. Versus
reacting to her anxiety.
Right. That makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the question is for you is how can you develop a strategy of awareness, and what would it take for Sean to, when mom's anxiety is high, to really regulate my own anxiety better, that I'm not being infected by her anxiety.
And I think that would be, as much as I really try for home and work not to connect, that I think is a pattern I have at work with when I sense anxiety in Joanna, which is always. Which, quick side note, I think is where I'm showing growth, is at least the ceiling's getting higher for that relationship, to where to a certain point her anxiety doesn't bother me, and then it like goes too high, and then I start doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And same with Kirk. And
man, you're around some highly anxious people.
Right. Oh Lord, this is why I just sit on the couch and do nothing sometimes when I go home, or just run and run it out. And I've tried another thing that I wrestle with too is the doubting, getting to a point where, like, am I correct in how I'm assessing this? Or I'm like, is my anxious meter broken? And like, I don't mean this as I'm still struggling with the age thing, but am I just a millennial that can't like function in the adult world right now? Like, am I just wrong and I should just be fine with all of this? I don't think that's the case, but I think working with the two of them and trying to work with my mom, I think that, plus the anxiety of, this human that's moved into my house, has gotten to me to a point where I'm better equipped for it than I was a year ago. It's a lot easier to just go to the fail-safe of, like, we'll just calm everybody down and we'll reassess later, versus let me calm myself down and then worry about you all after that. So I think that's a good point. I think that if mom's anxiety went up, it would make a lot of sense for me to say, like, I hear this is stressing you out. Can I call back and talk about this later? Would be a really easy thing to do. I don't know right now what I could say in a worship planning meeting with Kirk and Joanna if that happened, but I don't have a good example for that at all. My last thing when Joanna did something that, I'll have to go to that later. I think that would be helpful if I could just get to like, okay, well, I'll go back and talk about this later. And probably something I could do in a conversational setting. Kirk and Joanna's like, well, that's really interesting. Can I talk to you more about that later? Like, so that we can finish this meeting and we have it's good for a church to say this is the goal of the meeting and we're getting out of here in an hour or however set time we have. But I'd love to follow up with you on that.
Mm-hmm.
Would probably be a healthy thing to do. And that is not something I've done yet. So I think in another conversation, I would be interested in hearing how, like, to bring up those conversations. So, because I am sensitive to the idea of it coming in and be like, this happened, I felt this way because of that. What say ye?
Well, first of all, I'm just observing that I have probably a bit of a parallel in this.
Okay.
In that, I probably held things, well, I know I held things in rather than say them.
Yeah.
Rather than articulate things. To the point of my own detriment.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking that, keeping the peace and, I'm the bigger man or, whatever.
All those things.
All of those things that
Yeah.
come into play with life.
Mm-hmm.
But your question is, how to begin a conversation about something. I think you begin with observation. Say, I noticed that in the meeting yesterday when so-and-so was talking about, and then so-and-so came in at this, that I was feeling anxious or I was feeling I was feeling like I couldn't contribute or something like that. So using the I language.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not to say you made me feel this way.
Right.
Okay. Or even the situation made me feel this way.
Yeah.
The situation happened.
This is how I felt because of it.
Yeah. And I would even take out the because.
Okay.
The situation happened. This is how I felt.
Mm.
Okay.
Simplifying is good.
Yeah. Yeah. And and just wonder if anybody else has any thoughts about that or anything like that. So, and when it's when it's Jillian acting highly anxious to the point where she's correcting everything you say, even if it's that's green. No, it's not. It's ivy.
Right. Yeah. Okay. That is how it feels sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Well, actually, I think humor can also go a long way in expressing things.
Today would have been a good day to use that, and I almost did. Why didn't I do it today?
Almost.
I know, so close. The 4 people in the room, I'm going to say something at risk of sounding like I'm generalizing people, but just to get it out.
Okay.
Patty, Kristen, and Joanna. Kristen does youth, Patty does children, Joanna is there. All are people that don't mind talking. And I know I don't mind talking either, but in that setting, of people who talk, I will take the back seat to the other talkers, which if we want to CPE that part later on, we can, but that's just a personal preference of there's fewer words going out here right now. And she had said, what was it? There's a couple things, but the driving statement. I was just like, I don't know how, I said how long it was to get from here to the thing with to go Saturday. And she's like, well, I don't know how fast you drive. Kirk could get there that fast. I don't know about you. I was like, well, I grew up in the town you live in. And as soon as I said that, Patty said something, Chris said something, and Joanna went with them. And I was like, well, I'm not going to sit here and drop back to that. But it's just like, I'm going to get you. Good grief. And those kinds, I guess when hers seem a little aggressive, I'm more apt to make a joke about it. The one that caught me off guard was she had done a series of stuff like that in our worship planning meeting. And I was pushing back on an idea she had. I thought in a fairly respectful way. I figure with her personality, what I've tried to do is assume, like, okay, if you feel comfortable being forward with your ideas, I'm going to feel comfortable being forward with mine. And in theory, we should click okay. And I said my piece, and she's up and goes, well, it's whatever you guys want to do. I just wanted to share my opinion. And I forget if she said as deacon or as something qualifying her position. But it's up to you two to do it. And I just laughed. And I looked at Kirk, and I was like, I can't find the words to say, like, that's manipulative to do that. And so I think what came out was just, ha! And we moved on. But it was I think what would be healthy for me, speaking of, as we process this out, is to say, Joanna, I noticed in worship planning you'd said this. I felt this way when you said that. And I was wondering how you might have felt. What came up to say that would probably be a decent attempt at, and I can't control how it goes or if it's if the response feels condescending or something like that. But at least,
well, you say, for the sake of clarity, I was confused when you mentioned at the end of your giving somebody permission that you were doing it as deacon.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm just curious what that means.
Yeah.
For you.
Or yeah. Yeah, I think that's...
Holy schmoly.
Right, yeah. I'm sorry, it's hard to... Should pan the camera over for a second. Because I didn't think this was happening today.
Man.
Yeah, I think that I wrestle with what part of that is my responsibility to speak to. And Joanna and I we have a fine relationship. Like, we're not great friends, and I know she was really close to the previous associate, so I'm sure that's an adjustment for her. And I'm also 20 years younger than the last associate, which is not bad, but is a thing. It's a lot. I'm probably less relatable in that way to her as a colleague when I'm this age of her son, basically. Like, I understand those are all factors that go into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've tried to look at it recently as more of like, I don't think any of these behaviors are because of me. They're just behaviors that happen. I also try to think of like, well, how could I bring up these things, and we talk about some of them, when the one time I offered her, she wanted feedback on something, I forget to talk about this, it was, she had preached, and I was like, would you be interested in getting feedback on your sermons, like, and having conversations about it? And she just looked really uncomfortable and was like, well, just remember that I put all of myself into my sermons. And I was like, I don't really know how to equip you from here to handle feedback that's not, sunshine and rainbows or something like that. And so I think that interaction has kept me from wanting to go to her with any of this stuff. So I think just picking one thing and just saying, I noticed this, what about that? And then almost like normalizing those interactions. Even if I'm just a weird CPE kid doing it, at least it's happening.
I mean, I don't know how you can do it. I don't know seems to me, again, and theoretically speaking, that the more we can say about what we observe in ourselves and in others, the better chance that we can develop the relationship.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what you want to say. I don't know.
Yeah.
Say, I would like to develop our relationship. And so for me to be able to do that, on my part, I just need to say what I observe in myself and what I observe in others. And, and you don't have to feed people's insecurities. I think you can say things in such a way that, again, and as neutrally as possible, using I language and neutrality as much as possible, that it doesn't have to be a threat
Mm-hmm.
to people.
And I think, in general, it's probably good for me to remember that it's not my job to make them feel like it's not a threat. Like, I can control what I say, and if it's taken a certain way,
You're not in control of how they're going to feel.
yeah, that's unfortunate that you look at it this way. This is simply what I mean.
Yeah. You say, okay, I hear that stings, or that I hear that's uncomfortable for you,
Yeah.
and you don't have to defend yourself to death, or you don't have to explain it any further and say, I hear that, and that really wasn't my intent.
Mm-hmm. And just
Leave it there.
yeah, I have a hard time leaving it there. I think that's a patterns you notice around the way. Remember when I came in here the first time and said, like, I'm really good at separating work from home?
I kind of do remember that conversation.
Yeah. Oh, man. Hurts. It's funny, I've noticed the most over-functioning I feel like I get, which I think is probably understandable at the moment, is when Katie feels down about momness at home, like just trying to take care of Michaela and stuff like that. I find myself always pointing out, like, well, this is what's really good right now. Like, this is great. This is going fine. And it's usually when the kids scream in the corner. It's like, this is not fine.
Yeah, it may not be the right time to be pointing out what's going well as much as to hear hear what's her feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah, and that we ended up having I think practicing a good conversation for the two of us about that, where we're living in two very different hard parenting situations. She is loving and stuck at home with baby all day.
Mm-hmm.
And I get to go out and be with people. Conversely, I have things I have to do besides care for baby, and she has just
That's her life right
that's
now.
her life right now. And so we ended up talking tonight about, like, I think when we get frustrated, it's easy to feel like it's a competitive thing, like one of us should be doing better than the other's doing, or the other person's not doing enough. But the two of us just naming, like, well, this is why this is hard for me, and I also don't think what you do is easy. Ended up being a really, like, we've been a good couple of days because of that. It's one of those things, like, I think of the conversations I have now and wonder how many of them would have happened before. I like to think that Katie and I would have eventually figured stuff out for our conversations, but thinking of the ones for work and stuff like that, and the ones for home. Bowen's got some good stuff, I guess.
Well, yeah, I think at least 50% of the reason that patterns reappear in successive generations is because children don't come with instruction manuals.
Yeah.
And the models that we have are what we grew up with.
Yeah. And
for parenting.
That's true. Yes. I laugh and weep for Michaela to have a psychology major in this as parents. It'll be fun. She's gonna. We were with her. I'm changing a little bit, but we were with Katie's side of the family the other day, and Katie's brother, our brother-in-law, has 2 boys, and the 2-year-old, 1.5-year-old, started just bringing stuffed animals to Michaela, being like, play with this, and Blake, the 5-year-old, going on 6-year-old, was just like, what does this child need? What can I do? And Katie just looked at me like, this is going to be her life. She already has these 2 people waiting on her hand and foot. Like, what are we going to do? And Katie was the one who got the noisy toys for Blake when he was young.
Mm-hmm.
And so all I could think about is like, we're so screwed. It's going to be such a long couple years.
Yeah. I remember when Alex got noisy toys. Yeah. And then at nighttime, I would go in his room and take the batteries.
Yes. She has a couple of those play mats, the activity things, and they are very good for babies.
Yeah.
I ran a 5K that Shenandoah Valley did a 5K series, which is pretty cool. It was like $20 for 8 races.
Wow.
It was a really good way. It was one of those, like, if it's like this, we're running. If it's 70, we're running. Like, just show up. And I'm going up a hill, and usually I have music in my head as I'm running. And I'm halfway up the hill, I'm like, this is freaking Farmer in the Dell. Oh, Lord, it's happened. Like, run, Farmer in the Dell, Farmer in the Dell.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's I mean, part of it's a sleep deprivation, and Fitbit does not recognize a newborn setting. It just tells you that you're not sleeping enough. Did you know if you fall asleep faster than 15 minutes from when you lay down, that may be a sign of sleep deprivation? It said that and then added, like, you've been falling asleep in 5 minutes. What's wrong with you?
So, I think maybe sometimes we overly staticize, if that's a word, or data. We just get too much data on our lives.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I'm not suggesting it happens with you, but with some people that would just be anxiety provoking.
Right. Yeah. It's funny because fortunately that's one thing it doesn't provide anxiety or provoke anxiety. I do think it's just funny though. It's just one of those like, man, if that's the case, like start scrolling back for the sleep history. Remember the days a scant 5 weeks ago when it took me 15 minutes to fall asleep instead of falling asleep to the white noise machine over here.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing how any child survives their first 6 months of life.
It really is. Between the spitting up and I came home the other day, in 5 minutes of being home, I was spit up on, peed on, and sneezed on.
Welcome to fatherhood.
Thank you.
That's the baptism.
That is the baptism. And she had peed on me and peed on the changing mat. This is what sparked a conversation between Katie and I. Was like, Katie, I could use some backup. And she's like, I've had to do this all day by myself. She still came and helped me. But it was just like, you're not worthy of parenthood if you can't handle this by yourself.
Yeah.
The different roles.
Yeah, I've known lots of mothers of newborn children who see their husbands go to work and come back and have difficulty with the children when they get home and just take them.
Now you know.
That's right.
Yeah. It's so much fun, and it's funny thinking of the things that I recognize about anxiety. The first week when people were like, well, you have baby brain or whatever, or dad brain, and like I was a little annoyed. It's like there's the conscious thought of like, no, I just forgot that, and then I said out loud, I was like, you're right, it's I will.
I've got a built-in excuse.
Exactly.
Hey,
I will
what?
ride this so far. I gain. I obviously will now have anxiety of a different type forever.
Sure.
But it's been interesting to me to look back and see what other anxieties have fallen off, and like don't seem like such a big deal anymore, because it's not worth being. And I'm hopefully that's not just a symptom of compassion fatigue, that like I just ran out of space and it'll come back later. I think it's, we talk about the life-changing aspect of it all, but it almost kind of, the relief of mom is okay, the baby is okay, I can see them both. I don't think I've actually processed that relief that came. I don't know if you saw the process reflection with when I talked about my stomach ache, which is really funny to try to talk to the stinking nurse about. Like, just give me a ginger ale and tell me to go to bed. Like, I don't even care. It hurts. But not being aware at all of any of that stress. I guess I knew I was kind of stressed, but not how intense it was until 12 hours after it started, or 24 hours after it started. Man, I should calm down. So, anyway. Here we are.
Here we are. And that's the hour.
All right. Wander back and play some guitar.
Okay.